Hello, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. Once again, you are welcome on this show, Questions of Life. Once again, with me, I have Desh Kapoor from Atlanta, USA. As you have seen in last few episodes, we have discussed many unanswered questions, and the objective is not to give an answer. The objective is to discuss and find new interpretations, new insights, and new ways of looking at these metaphysical, philosophical questions which touch our lives every moment, and we wonder what are the answers. Ultimately, answers you have to find. We are born seekers, human beings. We have gone to the depths of the oceans, we have gone into the universe. Till date, we have not been able to discover all the layers of our mind and of our life, of our soul. One question which bothers everybody, there is nobody in this world who is not bothered with one question and who's not afraid of this phenomena called death. If there is life, death follows us like a shadow. Any moment, right now, at this very moment, I've seen so many people dying while talking on television. I've seen people dying while working. So death follows us like shadow. Every single moment of our life, we have this fear of dying. What is death? I don't know. I have not died. I don't know. I can just philosophically or intellectually try to find out what is death. Nobody from after dying has told us what is death. So we don't know. But yet, this is one of the biggest fear, and not just of human beings. Every animal is afraid of dying. And now the science says even the plants and the trees are afraid of dying. And they have their own mechanism to escape death. So let's begin this new episode of Questions of Life. Today's theme is what is death? Desh, what is death?
That's a very interesting question, actually. So I'll start with this very interesting story. So in Rhode Island, there is a geriatric clinic. So for old people, right? And there is a therapy cat there named Oscar. So what Oscar does is that he actually moves around and people pet him and things like that. Now, the interesting part of Oscar is for many years now, with 100% accuracy, he has predicted death. Like in the sense that if he goes and sits next to any a person there, like near the bed of any person or on the bed of any person, for a sustained period of time, then within 4 hours they have seen that that person passes away. And like it has happened for a long time now. Like in fact, there's a very interesting extract that I found from the New England Journal of Medicine, and it's very interesting. Let me read it out to you. Right? It says, Oscar takes no notice of the woman, leaps onto the bed. He surveys Mrs. T. She's clearly in the terminal phase of illness, and her breathing is labored. Oscar's examination is interpreted by a nurse, but he leaves that woman alone. Then he makes his way to Mrs. K, who's in room number 313, and she's resting peacefully, and her like in a bed, and her breathing is steady but shallow. So he jumps on the bed, and then he pauses for a certain time, and then he turns around and curls up, next to Mrs. K. So 1 hour passes. Oscar waits. A nurse walks around and notices him sitting there, and then she starts calling the priest and her family, and they all come, and within half an hour Mrs. K passes away. So many people are intrigued. Okay, why is this happening? Why how can a cat actually discover this thing? So some people are saying that maybe there's a chemical during death that happens, that comes out, and that's how people are able the cat is able to actually decipher that the person is going to die. But then the way I was looking at it is that cats and even the animals, like even fishes, they understand the changes in energy, the electromagnetic energy around you. That is why when the tsunami came, there were hardly any animals who were killed. So it was more of human beings who were killed, and because the animals had already receded back. When in Japan, there are certain kind of fish which are always used to actually predict earthquakes. I think it's catfish. So they keep them in the the aquarium in many houses. So the thing is, can the animals detect the changes in electromagnetic energy? So if they can, then is death? So the way I looked at it was that the cat was able to decipher that this person's energy has changed and this person is going to die. There's a death energy around that. Now, after that, no matter what the doctors and nurses were doing, like in the physical form, nothing changed the eventuality of the thing to happen. So is death an energy phenomenon? If death is an energy phenomenon, then life is also an energy phenomenon.
Yeah.
Right? So that is why last time when we were talking about yoga, and we were discussing, and we were looking at things and said that the yogis have never talked about bones, blood and muscles. They've always talked about nadi, chakra, and pran. They've always talked in terms of the energy systems that we have. Why? Because they looked at life as an energy phenomenon, not as a physical phenomenon. And I think the way I looked at Oscar's thing was like something very similar. And to me, it was extremely interesting how like even when the doctors are there, they're trying everything. Still, something is happening that we cannot predict or we cannot detect that signifies death. And the onset of death actually happens much before the actual thing happens. And many people have looked at our physical thing and the cells and how this is behaved, because like even though we are clinically dead, the cells are not dead. They are continuing with their life, and it's only after some time that they actually like stop all the functioning. And even after that, there are many other bodies that we have, like much more subtler bodies that we have, which continue to go on. That is why we have these rituals of 13 days. Within 13 days, we just put an end to everything. In fact, like I just find the Indian rituals to be extremely interesting, the Hindu rituals. But we'll talk about that later. So what do you think about this?
Okay, see, like I told you, I am not dead as yet, so I don't know. But it's like you told a story, so it reminds me of another story. It's a famous story of Confucius and Lao Tzu. So Confucius asks Lao Tzu, "What is death?" He says Lao Tzu actually got very angry with him. And these Buddhist teachers at that time, they used to keep a stick and they would beat their students. So Lao Tzu said, "You are alive, you are living, and you don't know what is life.
Right.
You don't understand life. You can't explain life. And you are alive, you are living, you are in that state. And despite being in that state, you know nothing about it. And you want to know about a state which you don't know when it's going to appear." That is the problem.
Right.
I think that first we have to be able to distinguish between two things. One is brain, another is your mind, which is your consciousness. So whenever we are born, whenever somebody is born with a absolutely fresh new brain, like a new CPU, brand new, straight from the oven. But mind is never new, it's never fresh.
Right.
That is your consciousness.
Right.
And that is a continuous process. And that consciousness is coming. And this was written thousands of years ago by Patanjali in yoga, that how Prarabdha, the whole concept of Prarabdha came there, that you have to make it simple for laymen, Western people who don't understand too much of metaphysics. which means your mind carries memories.
Right.
Now you can call them unfinished tasks, you can call them whatever, which is why you see we have this concept of millions of births you have to take before you find liberation, the ultimate liberation, which means when the consciousness, it doesn't say consciousness ends, it says you leave that consciousness. You don't have to be born with that consciousness because it's a process and you have to cross.
Right.
So if we have understood these two concepts, that brain and mind are different things. Intelligence is definitely not consciousness. Remembering dates and data, and a lot of people, impress in a party, they always impress with a lot of data and figures and dates and place. They will tell you, I went to this mountain, it was so many meter high, and there was. So people say, wow, this man is so sharp. No. Consciousness is life. Brain is just a tool. It's like your stomach, it's like your liver, it's just a tool to make you breathe as long as that pran is there. So if you believe that pran is everything, when pran stops, life ends, and that is death, then it's a different school of thought.
Right.
But if you think that death is just a transformation and moving from one consciousness means it's a new station in that consciousness, it's a train which is going somewhere.
Right.
So, to me, life and death is just cyclical. It is just taking you from one ride to another. You took from a cycle, you came to an auto bus stand, you parked your cycle there, you got onto the bus, to reach the train station, you took a train, you reached the airport, you took a flight, and you reached somewhere else. So you are just making a journey like that. It's continuous journey. Okay,
Right.
and very often from here we move to Delhi, to US, come back to wherever you are, then move on to the next. So that's a journey we are taking all the times. So for me,
Right.
I see Mother Nature. I don't look at you and me. I don't look at myself. Now, I used to. So I think I'm part of Mother Nature. It's a continuous process. Like seasons come and go, we are also coming and going in the same process. But
Right.
just to give you a perspective from my own understanding, I personally believe that death happens in this lifetime also. You have to die to whatever consciousness you are bringing with you.
Right.
Whatever that prarabdha is, whatever those memories are, whatever those impressions of thousands and millions of years in your mind, in your cells, you have to die to them. That is one death you have to create for yourself. Unless you die, you will never be able to figure out the purpose of your consciousness and you won't evolve.
Yeah. Very interesting.
Which is why you will find that there are two kinds of people. People who die only when the purpose of their life is over, this physical life. My father, my own father, he at 92, after my mother died at 92, he used to live in Bhopal, never came to Bombay, and he was a great scholar. He slipped and broke his hip bone. So we, as a son, I was the only person left in the family. My sister also died. So I kept requesting him, please come to Bombay, please come and live with me. It's difficult. He said, don't worry. At that time, Gyanpith had commissioned him to translate Atharvaveda. He had translated all 3 Vedas. That was the last he was supposed to do. He told me that I came on this earth to translate these 4 Vedas.
Okay.
Though he translated a lot of other stuff, Patanjali and Kalidas and whole lot of stuff, but he said this was the purpose. I have done 3. Okay, 4th I have to do. Until I finish, even Yamraj comes, he can't take me away from here. Because that is the purpose of my life. I have to finish it. And now if I talk today like this, a lot of people may think that is exaggeration, but I'll tell you, he finished it. And there was a help, there was a servant in the house. He asked him to, there was some stenotypist, so he packed it and he couriered it to Gyanpith. The receipt came from Gyanpith, we have received it. At same evening, he had some cough and cold. And I said, Acha, take him to the hospital, I am reaching tomorrow. I reached the next day, and day after, he was gone. Peacefully, without any problems. And 3 years, he broke his hip bone, he never went for the surgery. He refused to take the surgery. So he was lying for 3 years on his bed.
Wow.
He couldn't sit, he couldn't do, and he translated like that, and he died the day he finished. So I've seen it with my eyes. So there are some people who figure out what is the purpose of their life, and not him, lots of great people. Perhaps Vivekanand finished the purpose of his life. His purpose was only that much, to awaken people about Hinduism, and he did that, and then he was
Right.
gone. There was nothing left for him to do. He
Right.
would have repeated himself after that.
Right.
Because whatever he said in that much time was enough. You don't need to read Vivekanand more than that. There was nothing extraordinary he was going to say after that.
Right. 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 Very true.
You know what I'm saying? So it's
Yeah.
the purpose. Everything is for a purpose. And if you look at Mother Nature, every plant, every tree, every leaf, every insect, everything in this universe has a purpose. And once that purpose is over, it's gone. Summer has a purpose. Once the purpose is over, summer is gone. Then the next season comes, then the next season comes. The leaves grow, they have a purpose. Once the purpose is over, they dry and they fall and they become part of the soil. Again, then they create life and energy. So I believe in this. I'll tell you how I sorted my purpose, how I created this death for myself, how I was reborn. It's not romantic, it's truth, but in the next part. But now let me ask you something. That why are we not afraid of life? Why are we afraid of death? This is one thing I have never understood.
Yeah, I think like it's an interesting question, and partly because it is
Sorry, let me just add on.
huh,
Because life has more challenges. Life has real dangers.
right,
Life has real fear.
right,
You're walking in Paris and the terrorist comes and kills you.
hmm,
You are going in a car, you have an accident.
right,
You fall. You fail.
right,
Your heart, somebody leaves you. Life has more things to be afraid of than death. Death is the end of all these insecurities and challenges. So why? Sorry, this is what I
right.
wanted to add.
No, I think it's a good question, and like part of it is because the fear of the unknown. Like we know certain things, and we do not know certain things, and I think part of it all. See, knowing death starts from, like you were saying, knowing life. If I do not know what life is, then I do not even know what death is. And to me, death is just one of the stages of your life. Like in the sense that I'm, like a kid is born, then kids, starts walking, and then he grows up, and then he has a beard coming in, and then the hair get white, and things like that. So one day, like person also leaves the body, and to understand, to experience everything, every change that is happening in a very cautious way is something that we are not doing. We are just living our lives very uncautiously, right? If we were living every part of our life very, very consciously, we would know that these changes happen and death may also be another change. Now, at that time, we may not have our body, but we will continue, like in certain way. Now, like you were saying, and I was actually some years back, I was trying to grapple with this question of so what happens after this? And so there was this guy I read about. He's he practices resuscitation medicine. That's what he calls them. So doctors who work on people who are clinically dead or who are going through a cardiac arrest or things like that, and they resuscitate them back. There's a whole science about it. How the cells behave. How can you keep them alive for even a certain period of time, for a certain number of days, and then bring them back? So that's a whole science behind that, and there's a medicine field in that. So this guy's name is Sam Parnia, and he was in UK. I don't know where he's now, but he has seen in multiple cases. What happened was that people he was operating upon or he was working with, they would come back after they were clinically dead, and then they would come back and actually say that I was above the table and I was seeing this and you were doing this and you were saying this and things like that. So he did a whole study like about that, and I don't know what his study revealed after that. But people had different, criticism of that, saying, "Oh, like maybe at that time, the brain was still working and things like that. So that is why the brain could have registered something." And so like you were saying, the difference between brain and the mind. Now, there was a very interesting, this a case study where this, model or actress, I think Pam Reynolds, she had a brain aneurysm, and she had to be, operated upon. Now, what they did was they actually, took her, transfused the blood. They also closed her eyes. They taped it. They actually put a speaker in her ears, which was emitting sound outside, so there was nothing inside that she could have heard. And they taped the ears as well. And then they actually started operating upon the brain. The doctor actually took some part of the brain, a brain tissue, and they were trying to look for the artery there. And she said later on that, so one of the things she said was, "I thought the way they had my head shaved was very peculiar." And then she said that I heard a dental drill kind of a sound. And she also said that the nurse actually later on said, "We have a problem. Her arteries are too small. Try the other side," the other male voice said. Now, the doctor who was operating upon her said that this could have never happened because her eyes were taped, her ears were taped, her brain was open, and her blood was out. And there was no way she could have registered all these things because there was no instrument, right? Brain is an instrument of a memory. That is what most of doctors believe. The instrument of memory was not even functioning. Like it was all open. How could and all the senses were not even working because we had taped everything up. How could this person have heard anything when her ears were shut and they were emitting sound actually with the speakers? How could her eyes have seen anything and known this is what they were saying when they were taped shut? So that's what like Roger Penrose, who has just won a Nobel Prize for black holes. He has done a lot of work around consciousness. And that's what he has always said, that there is something that is happening out there which is more than what we understand, right? And there's actually like psychiatrist who actually also did some studies on the reincarnation, and he has also found the same thing. So we, like in our culture, this has gone on for a long time of like understanding that there is reincarnation. People do come back with a certain memory. In as per one study in the US, there were 8 million cases that happened of reincarnation. Like I don't know whether it was 1 year or like more than that, but there were a lot of the cases going happening here. So if there are 8 million cases just in the US itself, like imagine how many cases will there be around the world. We have seen a lot of things like that. So death, like, is death just physical? I don't think so, because like looking at like even when the body was clinically dead, the brain was out, like it was almost open, with the arteries being changed and the upper membrane being taken off, her eyes being shut, everything was gone. How could that person have remembered anything, or even heard anything, or known anything? So what is it that is functioning, right? Like you are saying, there is a purpose to like people's life, and when that work is done, like we have known that there are people who, after a certain sadhana, can actually hold on to their pran not going out, right? And this has happened to a lot of people. Maybe like your father had reached a stage where he could actually hold his pran and not let it go until a time when like he was done with his work. His internal intention was so strong of doing something, of getting something done, that like maybe he just didn't let it go, like no matter what happened. And that is a lot of people actually do that thing. They do not let the pran go. Like even my mother's case is very interesting in this. She had Alzheimer's, right? And her body had come to such a point that like it had forgotten how to even chew the food. So we were giving mashed food and all that. So I was in the US at that time, and I used to, like, I was in Boston at that time doing some project there. And, so I was feeling for a long period of time that, she was very devoted to Krishna. Somebody who had done so much, had so much of devotion, was such a devotee. How could she go through all this kind of a life? So, so I asked, like one of our friends who had that kind of perception. She could see things and she could, understand things that we cannot. So she came to my sister's house where she was, and she said, "Oh, look, why didn't you call me earlier? Because your grandfather is still there, and she's like a magnet to such beings. My grandfather had died many years back." And she said that he's holding up a lot of other people from going away. My father had also died earlier, so she named him as well. And so then she started working on all those beings, and like within a month's time, my mother passed away. Now, what happened during that time of her death was very interesting. That now, I had so I had come to India, and I was like I had to go to Chandigarh, where my like uncle was, and he was also had a very terminal kind of state. And so I saw him, and he looked at me, and we talked to each other. And then I told my cousins that, like, I really can't do anything much, so let me go back. I have met him, he has met me, and let me go back. And then when I came back, so as I entered, I was told that my mother is in coma. Now, what was happening was she was taking long breaths like this, right? And it was just going on in a certain like rhythm, and that rhythm was just going on and on and on and on. And like, everything else was dead. Like, you lift her hand, it'll just fall down. If you lift her, leg, it will just fall down. But just her, breath was going on in a certain, like rhythm. And then, like we all went through the night, and then in the morning I went to her, and I, put my hand on her forehead, and I recited a mantra that, like my guru gave me. And suddenly she took a long breath like this, and the rhythm changed. And when I came, so I just quickly went to take to get showered, and I came back, and my like family was around her, and they were trying to see like what was happening. So we started looking for Gita, and then read the Gita's chapter, and give her Ganga Jal and things like that, because like one of the doctors that we knew like told us on the phone that given how her state is, like we don't give her more than 48 hours now. So we like just did all those things, and she had come to a point where she's forgotten everything. She's forgotten her Thakurji, her Krishna, everybody, like everything else. And then my sister brought her Thakurji, the Krishna, and kept her next to her like pillow, and she said, "Mummy, like I've kept your Thakurji next to you," and suddenly tears started flowing out of her eyes. And I was like reading the Gita, and like I was almost done when my like family told me that she's there's no more breathing happening now. She's gone. So I finished the Gita, and then I looked at her, and it was such an amazing moment of complete blissfulness, like in the sense that it was almost like I'm directing a film and I'm part of the film. Like knowing what is going on, and still I'm part of the thing. And so next year I was had a certain this thing, and I was going to Kedar at that time. Walking up Kedar, walking up to Kedarnath, and I was texting my sister and saying that, like, what an amazing time I'm going here. It's such a blissful time. And my sister said, well, today is her Shraddh. Like, why don't you, help her transcend forever? So I went there and I did her Shraddh, and, I came down. And like many years later, I was talking to her and I said, I understood everything. Like, that she was holding herself, she was not letting herself go. But what was it that she was still trying to do? Because if she was waiting for me, I had come in the night. Why did she wait until the morning? And I just didn't understand at all. She said, don't you know? I said, no. She said, when I had to go to the priest to, look at the right time, the tithi of a Shraddh, he said, like, did she die before 12:10 or before, after 12:10? She said, when she took her last breath, she looked at the watch right at that moment. It was 12:13. So he said, well, then it was, like a certain, she died on Mokshada Ekadashi. So Mokshada Ekadashi, is a certain time when they say that if you die, you actually go to Vaikunt. Like, it is also called Vaikunt, Ekadashi. So I said, oh, then I understood like what was going on. That she was not waiting for me. She was actually waiting for that time. That time that when she had to leave. And that
lot of
and that thing is
lot of people say that, yeah.
Right.
And we die at a predetermined time,
Right. And it's like maybe so what I'm saying is sometimes we can actually change the time. Like maybe like in your father's case, for example, the time may have been earlier, but through his strength of sadhana, he was able to say that I won't go at this time. I'll go at this time when I'm done with my purpose. I mean, when your actually lifespan crosses a certain time and it is dependent upon your work that you want to do, rather than on any arbitrary thing. So the question then arises is, can you hold back your death or no?
This is interesting, whether you can hold your death or not. I think, see, like I said, brain and mind, consciousness are two different things,
Right.
There are two ways to live, There's a brain death. You are brain dead. When you are dead, your brain is dead, you can't function. I don't know if that is life. Yes, clinically you may be alive, but if you see most of the people, it's like क्या बोलते हैं, अभी दिवाली है, सामने मेरे दिए भी जल रहे हैं, तो अब देखिए 4-5 दिए जल रहे हैं, आई कैन सी इट फ्रॉम हियर. तो एक दिया जो है वो लड़खड़ा रहा है, धीरे धीरे फेड आउट हो रहा है. इट्स जस्ट गोइंग डाउन एंड डाउन एंड डाउन. द ऑयल इज देयर. इट्स नॉट दैट द ऑयल इज नॉट देयर, but it's just out of those 5 that one is fading off. So a lot of people, you will find their consciousness is fading off,
Right.
And it starts fading off very early in life. It's not that it happens late, it's as very early. And where does it fade off? Because they do everything to keep their brain alive. And what does brain want? Brain wants hatred, brain wants jealousy, brain wants competition. Brain is all about logic, numbers and everything. So the brain's activity is to keep you, to help you survive. And all these faculties of little competition, little jealousy, little violence, little greed, all these things are natural. Love and lust and sex, all these things are requirement of the brain, not of the mind, not of the consciousness.
Right.
So brain makes you do all these things, and we get so engaged in this brain, so engaged that the consciousness slowly starts fading off.
Right.
And that's why you'll see when you sit with some people, there's no chetana. They are there, but there's no chetana. They are into possessing things.
Right.
They are slaves of all those things they have possessed, whether stock, the house, wife, husband, children, whatever,
Right.
the job, the status. They are the watchmen of all these things they possess. They become the chowkidars of all these things. This is
Right.
how I see lots of people. I was also one of them. Then one day, suddenly I realized And this is very interesting. I want to share it. In fact, I'm starting my school of creativity. My first master class is based on this concept, which is personal experience. And I said, what if I actually die, the day I die? What are people going to write in my obituary? In India, when you die, तो आपकी चिता के पास लोग खड़े होके कुछ दो दो शब्द बोलते हैं अग्नि देने के बाद बाहर आके सब लोग अच्छी बात बोलते हैं लेकिन अगर उसका सार निकालें if you take the gist of it more or less you understand the person कई लोगों वो बड़े हेल्पफुल थे राइट ओके बहुत हेल्पफुल थे हो सकता है वो कंडक्टर रहे हो सबको टिकट बांटते हो तो एंड वेरी ऑफन पीपल से बड़े सिंपल आदमी थे this simple does not mean that he was a great man or he was a nice man. Simple means he did not conflict and he just was there. लोग कहते हैं नहीं वो we people define. So I said, if my hundreds of people are standing there, they have to write my obituary next day, or if they have to speak on me, what is it? What is this my life all about? And I actually wrote it down, the things, not things I desire myself to be, not that what I want people to believe and see me as, what I realized I wanted to do in this life, what life was to me. And that day I died to the brain, which was possessing all these ideas about life. Oh, I should have this beautiful wife, lovely house. I should be on the beach and I should travel to the world and people should go gaga gaga about me and all those kind of things,
Right.
And that day, since that day, I have not worn any color. I just wear black. And I have just people don't realize I have just 3 or 4 t-shirts. In fact, today only in the morning, I said, Pallavi, come help me out. And I just threw everything I had. I had 7, 8 black t-shirts. I threw 3, 4 out of them. I said, no, I don't need them. Why do I need them, So,
Right.
so I created kind of a death for my brain, which it was carrying for so long. And I said, this is the purpose of my life. This is why I'm going to live now. Every breath of mine, everything I do. And that made life interesting and there's no fear. There's no fear because every day I'm living with that purpose and it's not a destination. It's like somebody says, I'm going to take slow breath.
Right.
Or somebody says, I'm going to eat fruits, fresh fruits. And if he's eating fresh fruit, there's no destination to it. He's doing it anyways.
Right.
So very often we think purpose means reaching somewhere. And that's exactly what brain does. Brain deceives you in believing in that. And brain deceives you in being afraid of death.
Right.
Brain creates a concept of death in your mind. And that's where I think the whole problem lies. So once your consciousness, जिसको हम चेतना बोलते हैं, जिसको साधना बोलते हैं, जो भी आप बोलना चाहें उसको, समाधि बोले, जो whatever you want to call it, it doesn't matter. But ultimately that's where the life lies. And which is why you will find, like you said, your mother, I was talking about my father. In every family, there must be somebody like this. Lot of people, despite dying, something lives about them. What is that?
Right.
What is that? Right? Today, so many people, they live in your minds, in your brain. They live in your life.
Right.
Like we said, Vivekanand, Einstein, whether you like or hate Gandhi, or Abraham Lincoln, or Martin Luther King, these are greatest of the people. So because the society they live, but in your own life, if you see people you have interacted with, they have died, but they are around you. That aura. What is that aura? That aura is the consciousness.
Right.
That aura is the meaning of that energy. Like diya has certain meaning, the light bulb has a different meaning. The atom bomb also creates radiation that has a different meaning. So the meaning of that life stays with you. And I think this is what is so exciting, in front of which death means nothing. And consciousness, you have no concept of dying. Absolutely, because that consciousness is going to live. And now, look at the science before I finish this thing. Look at the science. Now the biotechnology. Now, what are they doing? Artificial intelligence and bioscience. What are they doing? They are saying that a person can be kept alive. And this is going to be reality. In fact, Subhash Kak talks a lot about it. In fact, I've heard a lot of lectures of his, So what they're saying is that artificial intelligence slowly will become your consciousness. I don't know. I mean, I'm not challenging it and I'm not believing it. Let's see when it happens. But that's what they're claiming. If you anybody who believes in science, I don't
Right.
think science is the absolute truth. I think science is just like any other part of many, many, many fragments of truth. But if you look at science, they're saying they can keep your artificial intelligence or your it's not consciousness, actually it's your brain. So today
Right.
whatever my brain knows, that will be alive with artificial intelligence, right? My device will carry every single thing about me, my mood, my feelings, my emotions, my likings, dislikings, everything.
Right.
Then, with bioscience, your body can be kept in whichever, like today, whatever my health is, they can just keep it. And for 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, you demand. I mean, you pay money and you demand, okay, for 10 years. After 10 years, when you come back, when your ticket is over, then you just put that artificial intelligence thing in your mind, your consciousness is back. So,
Right.
so you can live like that. But do you want that? Is that going to be life? I don't
Right.
know. Right? I don't know. So the mystery of Mother Nature is, I think, lies in our consciousness. I think both of us are believers of consciousness. So Gita is a consciousness. To me, Gita has never been one of those, this is one book I have to read all the times. I'm not
Right.
like that. So for me, it's part of my consciousness.
Right.
When we say Ram, to me, Ram is not Jai Shri Ram, it's part of my consciousness. My
Right.
relationship with India, Bharat, whatever you call it, is part of my relationship with you, with whatever we are doing. To me,
Right.
consciousness doesn't die. If consciousness had died, right, then we would have been like stones.
Right.
We are just another rock. So I believe that Earth, it's not so cold that we are going to die, and it's not so hot that we are going to die. It's just perfect, and it's just perfect for that consciousness. So maybe, to put it in a very metaphorical way, I think Earth is that super storage of this universe's consciousness, and we
Right.
are just small parts of it, which are dashes and dots. We are just become part of that. So we are part of that larger consciousness. You can't die until this
Right.
entire data is deleted from here, and deleting that data is not in our control.
Right.
So that's how I would say.
It's like people would come to Ramana Maharishi and they would say that I have this problem, that problem, and he would always say, who's asking this question? Like that is an important thing. Who is that person who's really asking this question? If you keep going down to that, like you will come to a point where, like you are saying, there is nothing but consciousness. Now, part of it is very subtler bodies that we have and which continue on even after death. But when the karmas completely finished, then even those subtler bodies actually go away. Then we are nothing but part of that larger consciousness, right? And so then who is left after we are gone in people's mind? And I think like part of that actually defines the sadness and sorrow and the entire narratives of death that people have, right? People feel extremely sad after somebody dies and things like that. There's a very like profound thing that I read. There's this Sant Mahatma somewhere, and like he was very happy. He was always blissful, and then he met this beautiful like woman, and they both married and they had a son, and that son was very nice, and he would just shower complete love to the son, complete love to the son, and the son was pampered and by him, and he would always go around. But when the son was 5 years old, the son actually died suddenly. So when people came to see him, he was still happy and still joyful. So people asked him, "So why aren't you sad? Your son, 5-year-old kid, has just died." So he said, "When he was not there in my life, I was still happy. When he came, I was still happy. When he's gone, I'm still happy. When he came, I gave him all that I could in my hand, like in terms of love to him. And that is all I could do to him. I could not do anything else. So now that he's gone, I've done everything, and now I've said, okay, like this is where our journey ends. So now I'm still happy. And there was another story in Yoga Vashisht where there are two brothers, older one and younger one. Older one is enlightened, younger one is not, and their father dies. And the father dies, and the older one is quiet and serene and sitting in one side, and the younger one is howling and crying and very, very sad. So after some time, this younger one really gets mad at his older brother and says, "So why? I mean, are you not sad that our father has just died? So why? I mean, look, why is there nothing happening to you?" So he said, "I've had so many lives. There have been so many fathers and mothers and brothers and sisters that I've had. You tell me, for whom should I start crying first?" So the thing is that, like, if we take this entire journey of our, like ourselves as we go on from one, life to another, like we realize that we have had these relationships and these interactions like so many times. So many people have died in our entire journey of our soul or our karmic body. Those people again come back. The real thing is, like, even in Garud Puran, like, which is read when people die. Like, I remember when my father died at that time, they were reading Garud Puran. I was listening very carefully at that time. Like it, somewhere it actually like alludes that whether you are attached or whether they are attached, they will not be able to like move on, to other realms. They'll stay stuck, and that will be a very bad situation for them. So that is why in our older times we used to have vanprasth. People used to just leave everything and just go to the jungle or some other place where they would stay. The old age home. I think that we started off, not the Western people. Vanprasth was our old age home concept, and people would just go and live there. Idea was they would stay away from everything that they knew. Because, like, if you're around people whom you know at the time of your death, you will always have some element of attachment, at the time of your death. So when you're leaving your body at that time, if you're totally aware and you're not attached somewhere, then you will have an easier way to leave. Like that was probably the understanding, I think. And, so that is why, when like people are, like leaving at that time, you always say like good things or like mantras which will help them leave and move on their lives. The idea is not to
You want them to have good memories when they move on,
right, and also have no attachment in the sense that like they can when they're leaving, just say that this is what I always tell everyone, that from my personal experience, this is what I always say, that whatever I could do, I've done for you. Whatever you could do, you have done for me. I am happy, and you also leave happy. Now just move on, because our relationship here just ends right here. Now you are free to move on to whichever realm, whichever level you want to move to. Because otherwise, if you get stuck with me or I get stuck with you and I pull you back, then it's not going to be good for you. So if I love you, then this thing is to let you go. Because if my love actually keeps you here, then that is not love.
Super. So, okay. So I think we had a great discussion, but you said a wonderful thing that about attachment and detachment, and that's exactly what I believe in, and I was trying to say, because uh, there is sun and there is moon, there is North
Right.
Pole and there is South Pole, there is day and night. This whole concept of duality in Hindu
Right.
philosophy, Hindu philosophy emphasizes a lot on duality, in this polarity, and to helps you understand that in life, if you want pleasure, you will have pain. If you want joy, you will have sorrow. If you want day, you will have night, and you cannot escape that and accept it the way it is. Similarly, like you said, so what I'm saying is that it's very important to understand that life, there is no life without continuous death. It's all about attachment and detachment. Life is now, and like your cells are dying every minute, but we get so attached to the past. and the past is dying. If you see, you have experienced something right now, and the next moment that is dead, and what you are carrying with you, all the memories and everything, for functional aspect it's fine what you are carrying, but then getting attached to the past is like living in a cremation ground. You know, it's like it's like living in your tomb. So I think that it's very important to psychologically, emotionally keep dying to what is gone and live in the present. That's where the life is. And life is a continuous process if you believe in the Hindu philosophy of consciousness. And our only objective should be to flow with the continuity of that life. That's what I believe in. So on this note, I think we can conclude it. We'll meet again next week with some other questions of life. If you are liking this show, you please write to us. You also raise some questions and you also talk about this. Our idea is to create an ecosystem where we discuss these questions of life, and primarily from Sanatan, Hindu philosophy or Vedic or whatever you want to call it, but in this our world, the kind of philosophy we have evolved in so many centuries, to see it from that perspective and take this thought forward to the younger generations. If you want, you can support us. It's a difficult thing to do for professionals like Desh and me every week. You can also contribute to our organizations, which is written in details. You can financially support us, donate. You can share these links. You can ask other people to join. If you want, you can create small discussion groups, fan clubs, whatever you want. But let's take this new movement forward. We'll see you next week. तब तक के लिए बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद. Good evening, good afternoon and good morning wherever you are.